The following is audio and video content from Freedom Church and Pastor Sean Wood. For more information about Freedom Church, please visit freedomchurch.sc.
As a pastor, I've had the honor of performing dozens of weddings, and in all of those weddings, my favorite part of the ceremony is the exchanging of the rings. I love that part. It's kind of the first time when there's just physical touch by the couple, and it's sweet, and it's just something special about that. In fact, it's even in the scripting of what I say the same way at every single wedding, and it goes like this. It says, in the same way that your vows, the vows they've just said earlier, are a verbal reminder of the covenant that you make with one another, the ring signifies, again, your commitment to each other in a physical symbol. As you wear it each day, you will be reminded of this day and the commitment that you've made to one another. And I love the ring. I love the ring for several reasons. For one, the ring, they're a symbol. It's a symbol of what's happening, and we know what these stand for, right? When any of you see a ring, you go, I know what that stands for. It stands for something. In fact, we say to people, hey, that's something you need to do. That's the next step in your relationship. In fact, to quote the poet, Beyonce, she said, if you liked it, then you should have put a ring on it, right? You guys, manana, or something like that. And don't hate, because you all know the song. You could do the dance too, and we could get it on YouTube and it'd go viral. But the symbol is one that we understand. We know this means something. When you see the wedding ring, you know he or she is spoken for. Like there's someone that they've made a commitment to. It's a symbol. Also, the ring is a reminder. It's a reminder. I know every time I see my ring or I feel it on my finger, I'm reminded of December 16th, 1995. And I remember what happened on that day and when Connie placed the ring on my finger. And because my wife is sentimental, she actually had the ring. It's really hard to take off now because it's gotten smaller over the years. Gold shrinks, if I don't know if you knew that. But so she had the date and like a little special I love you and Sean and Connie and all this in there. And so in case I ever forget my anniversary, I just have to go, all right, what is my anniversary again? It's a good little tip to have there. But I remember that day. I remember it. I remember exactly what it felt like. It's a reminder of the covenant that I've made. It's just a reminder not just of the day, but of a commitment. I mean, there was a commitment made on that day, and this ring symbolizes that commitment. And there are days when we just need that reminder. I don't know if your marriage is perfect and you never have had any struggles or whatever, but in 19 years, in Connie and I's marriage, there have been wars and rumors of wars at times. Like, there's just kind of been that. And so there's been times when we needed to remember the commitment that we had made to one another. We need to remember it. It's a reminder of that commitment. It's signified that we can make it through anything because of this commitment. We can kind of push forward into new territory because of this commitment. And so on great days, it's a symbol. And on tough days, it's a symbol. And it's a reminder of what's going on. I love the ring. The ring also declares to the world, I belong to someone forever. I belong to someone. In fact, we could kind of rewrite the script that I do in the wedding ceremony to sound a little bit like this when it comes to our commitments that we make to Christ. In the same way, your confession of sin and you asking Jesus to save you are a verbal reminder of the covenant you make with Christ. And that's an important part, is that verbal confirmation of Jesus. I want you to save me, and proclaiming to the world that you love him and living out for him. But we would say this, that water baptism signifies, again, your commitment to Christ in a physical symbol. As you remember it each day, you will be reminded of this day and the commitment that you have made to me. So water baptism, much like the ring, is this symbol. It's a symbol of a commitment that's been made. It's a reminder of a commitment that's been made even in tough times in our relationship with God. And so baptism is very important to us at Freedom Church. We really take it seriously, just like we should take seriously the commitment and the symbol that the ring is in the wedding relationship. But I also know the ring is universally accepted as that symbol, and people kind of understand what it means. But baptism, if you really, really think about it, it's just a little bit strange. And now you're going, well, wait a minute, a pastor saying that baptism is strange, but just go there with me just for a minute. What we say to maybe a world that's not connected with God at all, maybe a growing population that hasn't been connected in any kind of church or faith or any kind. We say to them, you come here, you make a commitment to God, you're gonna walk with Him, He's gonna save you. And so here's what we want you to do. We want you to come to the church, and you're going to get into a baptismal pool, which is kind of like a whirlpool with a pastor, and he is gonna put a kind of a rag on your face, which everyone loves to have that done to them, right? I mean, just someone to put a rag on your face, and then he's going to dunk you down into the water, something that most of you haven't had done to you since you were 8, right? Someone holding you under the water, your big brother at some time going, I'll let you up when I feel like it. And so we're going to dunk you under the water, and then when the pastor feels like it, he will bring you back up, right? Now, just to note, I've never left anyone under for too long. Like, I've never lost anybody, so that's been a good track record there. But it's weird, kind of, right? And so I thought if we put this much emphasis on baptism, that probably every now and then it's good just to explain baptism a little bit and answer some of the questions that you may have about baptism itself, and to talk about this commitment, this symbol, and this reminder of a commitment that's being made. So the Apostle Paul talks about baptism when he wrote a letter to the church. It's in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 22. It'll be on the side screens for you. It says, let us draw near with a true heart. That word true we're going to look at in just a minute. A true heart in full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. The symbolism of baptism is elicited here, that there is this washing that goes on of our bodies with water. There's this cleansing from evil that happens. There's this reminder, but also this symbol. And the word true there really speaks to a little bit about what we need to know and need to believe about baptism. Is the word there for true in the Greek is alethinos. And alethinos means that it's actually what it stands for. True in the sense that the name that has been stamped on it, the branding that is there, is true. And so it is a clear representation. What we call it on the outside, what we say it is exactly what it is on the inside. So the labeling is exactly right. In other words, it is a genuine person. And I think universally we just all really like the fact when people are genuine. In fact, it's pretty much universally accepted that we don't like people who aren't who they say they are. I've never heard anybody go, you know, what I really need is a few more friends who are hypocrites. That's really, really what I need. Because I like people to lie to me to my face and tell me that there's something that they're not. No one longs for that, right? We all say, you know what I really need in my life is just people who are real. People who say what they mean, and they mean what they say, and that they are exactly on the outside who they say they are on the inside. I need a genuine person. And what Paul is saying is, let's draw near with a genuine heart, a true heart. Paul is saying, do not be the type of believer that when something happens inside of you, you don't show it on the outside. And so for a lot of us, there's this thing that's been happening inside of us, this journey that we've been going on, and we've kind of stepped out in faith with God, but we haven't shown it on the outside. He says water baptism is just a symbol of what's going on the inside being the same as what's on the outside. It's that truism. It's that you are what you say you are, and you show the world that, because what baptism really is it identifies us as a Christ follower. Identifies us as a Christ follower. A covenant is never meant to be private. Now, some of you may have said this or heard this, is that, well, my faith is just something that's private to me. I don't really tell anybody about it. Nobody really knows about it. I don't talk a lot about it because my faith is something that is private to me. It's personal, but it's not private. Our faith was never meant to be private. In fact, the Scripture calls again and again for it to be very much public, for us not to be ashamed of who we are on the inside and to show it on the outside. It's very much supposed to be not private. Can you imagine this? You go up to the lady that you want to ask to marry you. Imagine that it's your wife before you asked her. Ladies, you just put yourself in this situation that your husband comes up or your future husband says, honey, I want to marry you. But here's the deal. It's going to need to be private. All right, I'm not going to wear a ring because that would just upset a lot of people if I did that. And it would just, I got ladies that hearts would be broken. So it's going to be private. Now at home, we're going to act like we're married. I'm going to get the benefits of marriage. It's going to be all great when we're in our house. But outside of these walls, I'm going to be like, I don't know who you are. Like, why are you following me, girl? Like, what's going on? Because we just going to be private. Now, let's just say it like Berkeley County would say it. That dog ain't going to hunt, right? You guys attest to that. Like, don't try that one at home, dudes. That's not going to happen. And in the same way, neither does a Christ follower who doesn't want to show on the outside who they are on the inside. Now, baptism is just one of those symbols, but it is a very important symbol that God gives us. And then there's a life that begins to happen, and there's a lot of outside stuff. But baptism is the step that Jesus says, take this and show people publicly what's going on in your life. So baptism is very much for others as well. It's not just for the person and between them and God. It is something that happens as a public symbol between you and those who are watching to say, hey, this is who I am. The other thing that it does is it identifies our old life as no longer who we are. It's no longer who we are. There's something like that in our spiritual journey with Christ as well. Look at Romans chapter 6 with me. It says, we were buried, therefore, with him by baptism into death. Into death. In order that, just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, we too might walk in newness of life. So in baptism, there is not this morbid picture of death, but there is a picture of something being put to death. There's a burial that happens. But the good news is there's not only the symbol that our old life is gone, we leave behind the old life, but there is a raised to life event that happens. And just like Jesus was raised to life, there is a symbolism there that says we put to death the old, we bring up the new. One guy who got baptized in the first service came up and I said, tell me a little bit about the decision you're making today, which is the question that I ask everyone who comes in. And I love to hear all of the different stories and what's going on. And he said, I need Jesus to save me. And so today I'm asking Jesus to save me, and I want to follow through with that with baptism. And then he just broke down, and I could tell that there was just a lot going on there. And I said to him, I said, when you go down in these waters, this is a symbol of the fact that everything that has elicited this emotion in you, everything that's breaking you this morning is dead, and it's being raised to life. You're going to be a new person coming out of this water. There's a new heart in you. Ezekiel says it's no longer the heart that beats in us that's dead and hard, but it's the heart of God. There's a new spirit in you, and so there's a new life. It also identifies our new life as who we are. It identifies our new life as this is who we are. Like, not only do we get to say, that's not who I am anymore, which is great, but if you get rid of something, you've got to replace it with something. It says, this is who we are. In fact, we have a song that says that. This is who we are. We once were slaves, but now we're free. This is who we are. There is now a new identity in Christ. Look at Colossians 2:12-13. It says, going under the water, baptism was a burial of your old life. Coming up out of it was a resurrection. God raising you from the dead as he did Christ. When you were stuck in your old sin, dead life, some of you have been stuck in an old sin, dead life before, and you can attest and go, that's a good life to leave behind. Some of you are there now, and you just need to leave it behind. Just leave it behind. It says you're stuck in your old sin, dead life. You were incapable of responding to God. Can I tell you that if you're here today and you're starting to respond to God and you're starting to point your feet in that direction, can I just tell you that it's because God is drawing you towards Him? You're incapable of responding to God. God brought you alive right along with Christ. Think of it, all sins forgiven, the slate wiped clean, that old arrest warrant canceled and nailed to Christ's cross. Now, some of you may have some questions. You may have some questions on this. Here's the first one. I was baptized as a baby. Does that count? Does that count? I was baptized as a baby. Does that count? Let me say, I think, this is just what I believe, it's a parental decision, and it was probably the best decision that your parents knew how to make to dedicate you to God and to present you as a child to God, and just to say, this is something we want to separate our child. We want to do this to kind of dedicate him towards you, God. And I think it's probably a very, very special thing, very special time. And so I just want to say that that's a great thing that happened. It's a wonderful thing that happened. But we know that that is clearly for parents and family and friends. In fact, we do dedication here. We love to dedicate children and babies and say, hey, we're going to stand behind you. We're going to be with you as you parent them. We're going to pray a blessing over them. We're going to do all of this because we believe that we need to be behind them as a church. But you guys know, if you've just seen that out here at all, you know that you don't remember your baby dedication, right? You're not going to look back at some time and go, hey, man, that time when that pastor prayed for me when I was 7 weeks old, man, that was awesome. I remember that. So it's not a symbol to you. It's not a reminder to you because you don't remember it. It's just a special thing where your parents were dedicating you to there. And we don't see any examples in the Bible of people being baptized before salvation or for salvation. Like, you don't see that anywhere in the Bible. And so what I would say is that I believe that baptism is something you make a decision as someone who can make that decision. Could be as a child, could be as a teenager, could be as an adult, but you make a decision on your own to ask Jesus to save you, and now it's a delineation line in your life, and you go, I want to be baptized because of that. And so it's something that you make a decision of. Here's the other one. And I get this one a lot. Am I going to hell if I am not water baptized? Like, that's the question. Hey, what are you saying? If I don't get baptized, am I going to hell? Is my salvation totally just not even counted? Well, here's what I'd say to that: is we believe Jesus plus nothing equals everything. So the answer is no to that question. No. It's not something that is for salvation. But I would ask this. I would say, but why do you look for a loophole? Like, why is it that you are looking for a reason not to do something that Jesus did and something that Jesus commanded that we do and that Paul commanded that we do and that's talked about all throughout Scripture? This is your faith. Why would you not want to wear the wedding ring? Like, why are you looking for a loophole in that? And so I think it's just a heart issue to ask ourselves, why do we even ask that question? The next one is, I was sprinkled. How should I be baptized? First, let me say, again, we are saved by Jesus, not the type of water or the depth of the water or who puts the water on you or who dunks you in the water or how much water gets on you. At the last baptism, there was a guy who was about 6'4", and I did my very best to get his whole head under the water, but I just could not do it. Like, he fought, and I couldn't. I lost. So the very top of his head was dry when he came out of the water. How many of you know that part of his head is still going to heaven? Do you guys know that, right? So it's okay. Like, that's all right. But here's what I would say for that. It's just important. And I think that we fought over these things. Like this, it's fights that have happened over and over the years with Christianity. And should we be sprinkled? Should we be immersed? Should it be this much water, that much water? Can only pastors baptize? That is crazy stuff. Okay, we shouldn't fight over that. But also know that sprinkling started in areas of the world where there was not access to clean and abundant water. Like, it just made sense. If you look at the history of it, it was like they didn't have anywhere to dunk someone, so they said, we're going to do the very best that we possibly can to follow Jesus, and the best we can do, because we don't have several feet of water, is we're going to throw some water on them. And so that was what they did, and it started for a good reason, and it became a tradition, and then it became a theology that we fight about. And so we shouldn't fight over it. And if you were sprinkled, here's what I would say. If you were sprinkled as an adult or as a child even who knew what you were doing, Like you are following after Jesus, and in the church tradition that you happen to be in, you got sprinkled. If you ask me, does that count? I would say absolutely. It very much so counts. In fact, it's something you'll remember for the rest of your life. It's a symbol and it's a reminder. It's a reminder. But it may be, and I'm not saying that it should be, it may be that you want to also do as Jesus was and to be immersed. And you say, well, why do you say that as Jesus was? Well, the word baptism in the Greek means immersed. That's what the word means. So when you say you want to be baptized, what you're really saying is, do you want to be immersed? And so I'm sure you could immerse someone in water through sprinkling, but it would take a long time, right? I mean, like a lot of sprinkling to get there. And so what the technical term means is to take someone, and remember the symbolism, dead and buried, and then brought and raised to life. And so there is a symbolism behind it. And so you might want to replace what was something that maybe wasn't exactly like Jesus was, or you might not. You might go, no, that was important to me. I knew what I was doing. It was a moment for me. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay because I think you were operating under a heart that said, I want to follow after Jesus. And I want to do what Jesus did. I'll give you a real-life example of that, of how sometimes there can be something that means a lot, but you may get another opportunity to do something different. When my wife and I were getting engaged, we needed to buy rings for one another for the engagement. And so I went to Dee's Jewelers here in Moncks Corner, and I went there with this little tiny diamond that I had kind of inherited from my mom, and it was very, very small diamond. If you got a magnifying glass, you might could see it. It was like that kind of deal. But can you turn to your neighbor and tell him, say, he was poor, all right? So very poor. Very poor man. And so I went there to this little tiny diamond, and I said, Daryl, can you help me out with this? I want to put this in a ring setting. I want to ask my girlfriend to marry me. It's a very, very important thing, and I want to go all out. What can you do? And so he was like, here's what I can do. And I said, Daryl, let me remind you, I'm poor. And so he worked his way down, and he finally got to this place where he said, here's what this setting, if I put it in here, this is what it'll cost. And I felt like I was doing a really, really big thing. It was sacrificial, babe, and it was $79, all right? So I have $79 invested into my wife's engagement ring in total. And here's the kicker of that. At the end of it, he said it'd be $79. I said, Daryl, you take layaway? And so I paid $5 a week for however many weeks that is. You do the math. And so I paid $5 a week until I paid off Connie's ring, and then I gave her that. Now, that ring is special. It's a symbol. It's a reminder. It's a symbol of who we were. It's a symbol of what we went through. But I've told Connie that on our 20th anniversary, I want to get her a different ring. It'll have that diamond in it and have the setting in it. I was like, I want to do something special for you now that's even different because I want to buy you the type of ring that a man should buy and not a boy. And so that's what I want to do. And so she's got a ring a boy bought her right now. I want to buy a ring that a man can buy her, right? And so that's just a practical example of maybe for you would go, that was something that's special. I'm not going to lose heart in that. I'm not going to look down on that. We'll always remember that well. But I want to do something the way Jesus did it. And so, but the real question through all of this is, have you been baptized after you allowed Jesus to save you? Sprinkled, dipped, whatever. Have you been baptized after Jesus saved you? And is it a reminder for you? And then I would ask, what prevents you from being baptized? Really, what prevents you from being baptized? Look at Acts chapter 8, 35 and 38. It says, Then Philip opened his mouth, and beginning with this scripture, he told him the good news about Jesus. So Philip is talking to this eunuch that was on the side of the road, this Ethiopian, and he's talking with him about Jesus. And as they were going along the road, they came to some water, and the eunuch said, See, here is water. What prevents me from being baptized? That's a great question to ask. What prevents me from being baptized? And he commanded the chariot to stop, and they both went down into the water, Philip and the eunuch, and he baptized him. He baptized him. So what prevents you from being baptized? This man asked a great question, and Philip said, Nothing. Let's get down. Let's go. Let's do this. Here's the deal with baptism. It's a process that's happening, and it's a journey for some of you. The first part of the journey is you're going to point your toes towards God. And if you're here, you've done that. You've pointed your toes towards God. You've said, I'm at least going to see what this is about. Someone invited me to church. I'm going to see what this is about. One of the 13 people who were baptized in our last service was here for the very first time, invited by a friend, been out of church for a long time. They took the simple step of saying, I'm going to point my toes towards God. But here's the tragedy. A lot of you have pointed your toes towards God. You've investigated. You've said, I need to find out more. You come and you listen to the music and you listen to the preaching, but you haven't taken the next step. There's dozens of you who have stopped with the first step. And on any journey, you don't want to stop with the first step. And so the next step is you allow Jesus to save you. And when you allow Jesus to save you, it is simply saying, I need to be saved. I can't save myself. I can't attend church enough. I can't be baptized enough. I can't be sprinkled, immersed, anything enough to save me. Jesus can save me. You say, well, how do I do that? We've made it so complicated. We've made people think there's a special prayer. We've made people think that there's something they've got to do or say or just the right way. You know what you need to say is, Jesus, save me. Save me. I can't make it in this life without you. I can't do this without you, and I don't know what it looks like, and I don't know how it's going to change my life. I don't know any of that yet, but what I know is I need you to change me, and you can change me if you save me. And then the third step is you respond with an identification into the family, which is baptism. You respond with baptism. Not a source of salvation, not a source of saving. Jesus does the saving, but it's a resource as a reminder and a symbol. And so I would ask you, will you respond today? Will you respond today? I can't think of a good excuse not to if you never have. For some of you, you just haven't asked Jesus to save you yet, and I can't think of a good reason why you wouldn't. And if you haven't asked Jesus to save you yet, then you should go ahead and follow through with baptism today. For some of you, you've made that decision, but for some reason, you've put off baptism for a long time. You've fought with it. You've battled with it. You've said, well, I got to get people here. I got to do this. And I would just say, put the excuses aside and ask as the Ethiopian eunuch did, say, what can I do? Why shouldn't I be baptized? Is there any way I can be? And here's why. It's the first step that Jesus commands us to take as a believer. So Jesus told us to do it. And then another reason why is Jesus was baptized himself. So he modeled it for us. So I believe for many of you today is going to be a reminding day, a reminder. It's going to be a symbol this day to look back on and be like, I am fully committed to Christ. I belong to someone forever. I think God is prompting many of you to be raised to life with Christ today. The real question is will you take those first steps just to go back to this door in the back corner and say, hey, you tell me what to do from here. And there's a team of people that want to help you out. They've got everything that you need. And they're ready to usher you in and get you taken care of, and then we'll be honored to baptize you. You know, baptism is just such a cool thing. It's a life-changing thing. And I wanted you, as just one last step, to hear the story of a family and a little girl who's going to be baptized today, and through the journey that she's taken. And maybe this will be that from the mouth of babes that will prompt you to be baptized as well. Would you listen to Lily's story?
Back in 2011, we moved down from Charlotte and we started church hunting. We visited a couple places. We found a place that we thought we would enjoy, and we started going there. Freedom Church, we heard about it in a couple different avenues. We were invited to come see my brother Michael get baptized, and of course that was something we weren't going to miss. So we walked in, we sat down, he was baptized. Of course it was an emotional time for us as a family, but we never stopped coming after that. We were Freedom Church members that day.
I think for us there was a blend of the experience of seeing Michael be baptized, as well as experiencing what we felt like was great truth and preaching, and also the worship that was provided at that service was something that was very important to us, to have our children engaged in the worship experience with us was some of the things that made it just feel like it was the right place and become our church home. As a parent, raising your children up and teaching them about God and teaching them about the relationship they can have and the joy that comes through a relationship with Christ is one of your biggest privileges as a parent. So seeing that opportunity to share with Lily, and baptism for her was some of her first experiences with God and seeking after God. So having a chance to talk with her, explain to her what baptism was about, explain to her what a relationship with God meant, and to pray with her has been really just one of the best experiences as a parent, I think, that you can experience. So really excited to see her publicly proclaim her faith through baptism. I'll be very proud dad on that day.
My name is Lily and I'm 6 years old. When you ask Jesus to save you, it means that he takes away all your sins, and when you die, you can live with them. And I prayed with Mommy and Daddy. I asked Jesus to forgive all my sins so I could live with him when I die. I was nervous to get baptized because my head had to get dunked under water. I'm not nervous to get my head dunked under the water now because I'm going under the water sometimes in the pool. I would tell someone who is nervous about getting baptized that just be brave and just do it. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back.